All right, Alexander, let's talk about Kleinsmith and Russiagate. And it looks like after all of this 3, 4 year thing that the entire world went through, the Trump administration, the United States, you know, the whole Russiagate, Ukraine gate, Trump is a Putin puppet, everything, Comey, Brennan, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, the whole thing. We end up with one indictment and the sentencing, which, from what I understand, was pretty much a slap on the wrist, if that. Probation. That's it for Kleinsmith. That's the whole thing. That's the whole extent of it.
Probation and a $100 fine. $100 fine. I mean, I have to say, I am beyond being shocked anymore. But you know, it is really an appalling statement about the priorities of official Washington. Because contrast that with what was done to Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn, who is a completely innocent man, he committed no crime. Even the Justice Department admitted that he committed no fine. He was put through the absolute grinder. He's lost all his money. He had a judge, Judge Sullivan, who wouldn't dismiss the case against him, even though it was the Justice Department were themselves saying that there was no basis of a case against him, and he was innocent. In fact, Sullivan said that he would have sent him to prison. I mean, that's how bad that was. And we have Clinesmith, and he comes before a judge, and the judge says that he almost certainly acted in good faith, that this was some kind of a slip, which results in a man, Carter Page, being placed under surveillance by the FBI. But that's what the judge says. He says it was only a slip. Those words that he changed in a CIA email were just, nothing, they weren't intended maliciously or anything like that. And he walks away with a short suspended service sentence, I think it's 6 months, and a $100 fine. I mean, I just, it's think of Roger Stone being arrested in the early hours by an army of FBI agents. Think of Paul Manafort, who had previously been told that there wouldn't be a case against him brought because of all the Ukrainian things that were alleged against him, and then after being given that assurance, he's prosecuted and sent to prison for all those years, and his health collapse and all of that. Think of George Papadopoulos, also convicted for lying to the FBI about absolutely nothing, about the fact that he got his dates of his meeting with Joseph Mifsud mixed up. I mean, that's the contrast. So this relentless prosecution of all of the people who were targeted over Russiagate. They were surveyed, they were prosecuted, some of them went to prison on procedural crimes. And Kleinsmith, who was one of the people involved in this relentless political investigation, ends up with a slap on the wrist. And with the judge going out of his way to saying how he'd acted at all times in good faith. I mean, it really is actually appalling. It makes one feel very angry, or should do. And of course, some Republicans, like people like Devin Nunes, are strongly criticising it, as they should. But it is the reality of today's America. We always said on this programme, we were saying it for years, that the outcome would depend on what happened in the November election. If Donald Trump won, there was a chance that these prosecutions, these investigations of the investigators would be taken forward. If Donald Trump lost and Joe Biden became president, all of these investigations would be swept under the carpet. And that's, it seems to me, what is now going to happen, and the Kleinsmith judgment confirms that.
Yeah, but you know, this whole thing is so frustrating. But anyway, look, the Trump White House could have gotten to the bottom of this if it was more aggressive, if they had hired the right attorney general. Unfortunately, they went through Sessions, then they went to Barr, and Barr completely swept everything under the rug. I mean, at the end of the day, the elections or no elections, my opinion is that this stuff would have never gotten out because the swamp didn't want it to get out, and they were going to hide it no matter what, and even President Trump couldn't get it out. We still don't have declassified stuff from Russiagate, all of it. So I mean, okay. Here's my question then: is the United States in this respect, with when we're talking about law at the highest level, dealing with government officials and institutions and government corruption, and this is a serious question, is the United States a banana republic?
Well, I'm going to say this straight away. If you'd asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have said absolutely not. The United States is one of the best judicial and legal systems in the world. It's got outstanding lawyers. That's what I believed. Now I no longer believe that. It's become absolutely blindingly obvious over the last 5 years that what the United States has landed itself with is a deeply politicized judiciary and a deeply politicized investigation agencies in the FBI and the likes of them. So clearly, some people are protected and others are not. And you can see that happening in case after case and time after time. You saw that. I mean, we saw that with the Epstein affair, for example. So this is now, I think, become a major issue. And of course, you cannot have a proper functioning democracy without the rule of law. And the rule of law implies the impartial administration of justice. So I have to say this, perhaps not a banana republic yet, because banana republics don't have big economies and nuclear weapons, but it is heading that way. This judgment that we've just seen, this judgment which we have just seen, is a symptom of national decline. Be under no doubt about this. Other countries like China, well, they've never pretended to be democracies. They work in a certain way. There's never been any pretense there that there is impartial justice. So they can work with it. But the United States pretends that it's a constitutional republic, a democracy, and works under the rule of law. It cannot be those things if the rule of law no longer operates. So it is a sign of decline, and it is a sign that the United States is heading towards becoming a banana republic, like Honduras and Paraguay and those kind of places. Perhaps not quite as they are now. Apparently things are a bit better there than they used to be, but as they used to be in the 1960s and 70s and that sort of time.
Right. I mean, throughout this whole 3-4 year thing, we were expecting and we were thinking that, given all the evidence that we had in front of us and the lack of even more evidence that we thought was going to be coming, that at least, we were never naive and thought, okay, this is going to go all the way up to Obama or Biden or even Brennan, for that matter, even though we know that they had a hand in this. I mean, we have his handwritten notes, for God's sakes. We have him and Susan Rice's emails and notes. I mean, okay. But we said maybe this will get to, a Peter Strzok level. Maybe this will get to a James Comey level. Maybe we'll see some justice there. At the end of the day, they're all walking. Every single one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kleinsmith with a TV show on CNN. James Comey, walking. Bruce Orr, walking. Glenn Simpson, nothing. Christopher Steele, nothing. Lisa Page, nothing. I mean, I'm speechless. I am absolutely speechless that 4 years of everything that we've reported on and everything all of us have seen, us, our viewers, everybody, that this whole thing is just going to be just swept away. That's what's going to happen. It's all going to be swept away. Big tech and social media are going to just, black out everything and put everything into the memory hole. It'll be wiped away clean. And that is that. I mean, it really is. I ran into a story today, and I'll finish up, and you can talk about the rest. And I hope this is the last Russiagate video I ever do, or Ukrainegate video I ever do. So I'm on the New York Post, and what's the title of an article that I see, Alexander? I see this article: hiding Hunter Biden, laying low in L.A., starting art career with a shady dealer. Okay, the New York Post is obviously they're upset with what's going on with Hunter Biden, but then you go on and do research, and the titles for his articles from the New York Times is "There's a new artist in town. It's Hunter Biden. He's now preparing an exhibition with in LA of his works." We saw the same thing with George Bush after he destroyed Iraq and killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. He ended up 5-6 years later painting cute dogs. And this is it. I mean, this is all theater. This is all theater. This is all a freaking game. And these people are, from Hillary Clinton to Hunter Biden to Kleinsmith, all these people are 100% above the law. There is no doubt about it. They are above the law.
Absolutely. Can I just say, we did predict it. I'm going to read an article that appeared on the Duran, which I wrote, but I remember we talked about it in advance, on the 4th of March, 2017. This is just after, Russia. Well, it was at the time when Russiagate was at its height, shortly after Donald Trump was elected president. And it reads as follows. To be clear, the wiretapping of Donald Trump's phone and of the Trump campaign are the real scandal of the US election of 2016. So the bogus Russia story is the real cover-up. To say this does not unfortunately mean that this scandal is going to play out the way it should, or that people will see it for what it really is. Many people in the US political system, including in the US's deep state, in the media and in Congress, are deeply implicated in this scandal, and they will fight tooth and nail any attempt to hold them to account, continuing to use the bogus Russia cover story to justify and protect themselves, as they have been doing successfully up to now. Beyond that, there are a great many people who have brought into the Russia story, falling for the entirely wrong and repeatedly discredited pseudo principle that there cannot be smoke without fire. So we predicted then that there would not necessarily be a proper investigation. But having said that, it is always dismaying to see these sort of predictions come true. And yes, we do see that some people clearly are above the law. Hunter Biden is supposed to be under investigation. He's supposed to be under investigation. He's been under investigation for 2 years now. The FBI kept the fact that he was under investigation secret at the time when Donald Trump was being impeached on the grounds that Donald Trump was making false claims about Hunter Biden and his activities. Those activities, it turns out, were actually being investigated, as many people at the time thought they should have been, and as Donald Trump was supposed to have wanted. And yet the FBI kept that secret. We had an election in which all the facts about Hunter Biden and his laptop were concealed from the American people, even though one of the most influential and popular newspapers in the United States, the New York Post, wanted to make those facts known to the American people during the election. We've had opinion polls which show that the election outcome might have been different had people known about all this information about Hunter Biden. And here he is. He's now become an artist, apparently. He's going to hold an exhibition. He's swanning around Washington and wherever. And he clearly doesn't feel under any sort of pressure and any sort of threat. And unfortunately, all the indications are that he is right. If you worked for Donald Trump, if you worked on his campaign, you are going to be the subject of relentless investigations by federal authorities. You risk having your social media profile crashed. You risk being driven off social media entirely. You are going to be the target of abusive commentaries in the mainstream media. And of course, you risk prosecution and possible conviction for all sorts of real or imaginary crimes. If you are Hunter Biden, you can do what you like and no one will prosecute you, it seems. And if you are Kleinsmith, you get a tap on the wrist and a $100 fine. That's the reality of the United States today.
Final question. Can any of this be remedied, the legal system, or is it too late? I mean, is it too entrenched, the swamp and all of this corruption? Is it just partisanship? Is it simply just too entrenched?
It is not too entrenched. It can be remedied. The United States still has a constitution. It still has elections, just. It still has millions, tens of millions of people. And of course, those tens of millions of people have been made aware over the last 4 years to a greater extent than they have ever been about the reality that their country is becoming. The GameStop episode, which we talked about, is an example of how these people are now starting to push back, even though, again, we see the attempts that have been made to suppress them. So it can be reversed, but it will be a gigantic labour to do it. Changing this, restoring the republic to integrity is going to require enormous work by millions of people. You can't rely on one person, Donald Trump or whomever, being elected to the White House and expecting that he or she by themselves can put it all right. It has to be done in the form of a large political movement organised at the grassroots, campaigning consistently over the years, developing a whole body of people who can then be put in the important positions. I mean, one of the problems was Donald Trump could never find people whom he could rely upon. He couldn't find people whom he could put in charge of the FBI, who could be, trusted to clean up the FBI and to put it back in its proper way. He found some people to put in charge of the intelligence services, but only in the last weeks of his presidency. So what you need is many people to come forward with the focused objective of saving the republic and bringing it back. Now, things like that have happened in the United States before. There was the abolitionist movement at the beginning of the 19th century, which faced enormous resistance and great pressures, and it succeeded. Then there was the reformists at the end of the 19th century, in the early 20th century, the people who crystallized around people like Theodore Roosevelt, who worked hard to clean up politics and who took on the big city machines like Tammany Hall, and that was incredibly difficult, and they succeeded. Then there was the civil rights movement in the 1960s. The United States has that potential, and the commitment to democracy amongst the American people is very deep and very strong and should not be underestimated. But I have never known a situation where the entire federal government and the entire media space is closed to them to the extent that it is now, and where both of the two main political parties, the leaderships of those parties, is also essentially controlled. So it's going to be a bigger challenge than it has ever been, but perhaps a more important challenge, a more critical challenge for the future of America than it has ever been. How America works out, how things work out in the United States, in America, well, we shall see. But it's a battle people have to face and have to win, because the future of the American Republic, and indeed of the world, depend on it.
All right, we'll leave it there. Alexander Bearhurst, thank you very much. Guys, look for us on BitChute, on Odyssey, and on Rumble. You can also help out this channel by donating to us via PayPal, Subscribestar, Patreon, and of course, Bitcoin. And look for Alexander's channel. You'll find the link for that in the description box down below. Look for my channel. You'll find a link to that underneath Alexander's link in the description box down below. And as always, go to the Duran shop and pick up some great merchandise that really helps out this channel.
Indeed, absolutely. You'll find the most amazing things in our shop. You'll find our famous magic mugs. You'll find our extraordinary t-shirts, long-sleeved and short-sleeved, all 100% cotton. You'll find our fantastic hoodies, like the one that Alex is wearing at the moment. You'll find sweatshirts that will keep you warm on cold and wet winter days, like the ones we have in London. And you will be supporting and helping the Duran by doing that. And you will also be supporting the Duran by finding us on our other platforms, by supporting us through PayPal, Subscribestar, Patreon, and via Bitcoin. And please join us, and we look forward to having you in our next broadcast.
All right. Thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.